Welcome to the Seize the Data podcast. Today we have an awesome guest, Johnnie, who is a Tableau expert, years in the data field, and just a great all-around guy. Johnnie, I want to turn it over to you for a quick intro and background on yourself for us to get started.
Hey, Logan, thanks for having me. So I have been a user of Tableau. I'm going to be calling it Tableau Classic at various points throughout this, and you'll understand why. But I've been a user of Tableau for about 15 years, have about 20 years in data experience working in different positions. My background comes across being admin at a few different companies. Worked for Hallmark Cards, shifted over to the Motley Fool, where I was the admin for their server instance, their Tableau Cloud instance for a while. And now that I am not there, just doing my own thing as an independent Tableau consultant, helping out companies navigate those woods.
Very nice. And so you said you've been using Tableau for over 15 years. And I'd love to hear about kind of that starting point, what initially brought you to Tableau. And then if you can talk about some of the biggest changes over the years from, 15 years ago to now.
Yeah, so for me, it's been interesting. For one, whenever I go to user groups and everyone's like, how long have you been using Tableau? I say 15 years and the shock and awe in the room of just like they exist. It's kind of crazy. But for me, start off just needing some data visualization tools for us to kind of work through. We were looking for kind of a no-code approach for people who weren't super heavy into different coding techniques at the time. And Tableau was great. Like just coming into it, the visualizations were crisp. Actually, it was aesthetically pleasing compared to a lot of things that were going on. I think we were shifting off of MicroStrategy at the time, so that was kind of like night and day in terms of the visualizations you could get out of it. But over the years, it's been interesting seeing Tableau shift from being something that is a tool to a suite of products to being a platform to now being an ecosystem, which is kind of what they've gotten into yesterday. And it kind of seems to be where the BI just landscape is shifting in general. With the tools, it was just Tableau Desktop, Tableau Reader initially. And then you started getting into things like Tableau Server, where people could offer those things out. That was more like the suite of products you could mess with. You started getting into the platforming once server and cloud came into existence and you're sharing things with everyone. You have Tableau Public going on. Just seeing the growth there and the different things that were easier to do in Tableau over time. Seeing that you could get away from just having to hack the tool so much to now those things are just native. More and more connectors over time was always great. And now just with they're leaning into AI as they're doing, it's really become an ecosystem as they've been absorbed by Salesforce. And Salesforce is really getting their value out of having Tableau as part of their tools.
Right. And on that ecosystem point, would you be able to talk a little bit more about what that means from a company perspective, from a Tableau admin perspective, maybe from a Salesforce customer, and dive just a little bit deeper there on what it means to go from platform to ecosystem?
Definitely. So in my mind, at least, how I've always broken these things out, when it comes to being a platform, it's more of like a nice encapsulated environment where you can do one core function, but you still need these other pieces to kind of help it function. This is where people are doing things in Alteryx. They're taking care of transformations in different places, their ETL things. They're taking care of those things in different places. When you step over into more of an ecosystem environment, I think that's when you begin shifting your ETL, you begin shifting where your data is housed, you begin taking all those different data warehouses, data lakes, combining those. Your communication begins to happen in one place. You're trying to solve and create this one size fits environment for everything. And the part that's been really interesting to see with that being in the BI space over time is that in the past, there wasn't an appetite for that. In fact, companies, I would say, feared it. There was a fear of being entrenched in one environment and, it's just a really high switching cost if we ever want to move on to anything else because tools change. But now I think since more companies are kind of creating some different flavor of a similar item, now I think companies are more willing to get in there. And as there's been more data, you need different places where you can actually coordinate all those different data sources in one place. It just makes it easier for everyone.
Right. Very interesting. We've been seeing, so many of our customers where as soon as data hits BI, whether it's Tableau, PowerBI, Click, there's another layer of transformation that always happens. And the debate we hear from the data engineering teams versus the BI team all the time is, hey, why are we doing all these transformations in the BI system instead of doing them DBT plus Snowflake or other tools? So I'm curious your thoughts from, I guess, both perspectives, whether it's data engineering or BI teams, on, in your mind, what is that kind of best practice and where should logic and semantics actually live?
I mean, you're gonna hate me for this, but I think both sides are right. And honestly, it
Okay.
depends. It honestly depends on what theory the company is coming at things from, like how they're approaching it. On one end, I fully agree with you want to handle those transformations in different places. I do think it's great to have tools that are kind of Swiss Army knives, but there are certain tools that do one thing and they do one thing really well. And I can't argue with that. Some things are just best in class because they're best in class. You want to use them. But at the same time, especially now that I forget which episode it was of your podcast, I heard someone say they like to handle things with tools. It's not so much you doing things anymore, but you're allowing the tools to shine and do what they do to make your life easier. Just paraphrasing here. And I feel like that's where it all comes in now, where it's I want to do it all within the tool, within that environment. It just makes things a lot more seamless. You're not necessarily having to translate between different systems and things like that. And it can speed up production a lot if you have people who are familiar with that process from end to end. That really helps teams now.
Okay, very interesting. And the new Tableau features that you've seen, I guess, over the last, I guess it was this week when kind of new rollouts. What are the big focuses that you think Tableau, Salesforce are really focused on for their current customers, future customers over the next year or so?
So I actually, it was yesterday. I watched a future Tableau presentation and I took notes. So this isn't me like assuming this is what they said. Everything is boiling down to them trying to address 4 key issues that they're hearing from their customers. That's that insights are overlooked or ignored. That's number 1. Number 2, users don't trust the data or the insights. Number 3, the data landscape, it's become large and fragmented. Some would say too large. And then the final thing is just that you can't reuse what you build. They're saying people they're wanting one thing to handle all of that. And they address it in different ways with some of the things that they came up with. In the past, for those who recognize this, they both introduced and have already sunsetted Ask Data. That was when natural language processing was the big thing. Everybody was just, NLP. You would type in something, it would spit out this visualization. But it was doing that based on preset relationships, didn't really have the context and things like that. And not a lot of people used it. Now they're shifting into Tableau Pulse. This was originally powered by what was branded as Tableau GPT. I think they've backed off of that and now termed that Tableau AI because ChatGPT is kind of owning the whole GPT branding at the moment. But they set that up now so that you can ask it questions and it actually tries to address those things with business context. It's an LLM, so it's learning over time through more use. It will get better over time if it's clunky initially for people. Pulse for Salesforce, that's taking that same thing that dropped today. And that's more for the Salesforce clients, not necessarily for people who are purely Tableau. And then they're talking about Einstein Copilot for Tableau. That's kind of the biggie. And that's the one that I think, when you think about business intelligence, just analysts in general right now, that might be the one that worries people a little bit if you're in the profession. And that's because it's meant to be an assistant that as you're doing things in the flow of your work, you're asking it questions, it's providing you information, it's kicking those things back. So yeah, those were their big ones for today specifically. That's Pulse for Salesforce, Einstein Copilot for Tableau.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I guess like right now the world seems so AI focused.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, would you be able to share a little bit more about Tableau AI versus Einstein? I guess I feel like I mix up between BI systems, keeping track. Okay, in Power BI it's Copilot. You have Click AI, and now it's Tableau GPT. Now Tableau AI, and now Einstein. Could you just shed some light on the differences between those two within Tableau?
Yeah. So to my understanding of this, and I'm speaking again specifically, I came from that Tableau Classic view where we were using Tableau, we weren't necessarily a Salesforce customer. So for Tableau, that's where you're using that Tableau AI. It's within your systems, it's learning from your reports and your associations, Tableau specifically. Einstein, that's been around for years, honestly. That was kind of what Salesforce's main thing was, that over time, it's just become this smarter and smarter little assistant that's gone from just making associations to being an LLM in its own right, to now they've intermingled those systems. And if you're a Salesforce client, they communicate, they work together. You can use it across your entire product suite, which is going to be pretty huge over time when you think about how many people use Salesforce.
Right. Yeah, and the number of use cases Salesforce solves for today as well. Like
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
it's a product suite that's, I guess, always evolving, and more users, applications, acquisitions is I mean, makes sense as like the giants in the tech space of their strategy is, hey, you want every piece of a business ran on us, from SMBs to enterprises to governments, is how can we be ingrained in every single piece.
Yeah.
And
the everything store.
exactly. And then at Data Logs, we think about the challenges or kind of problem set around AI plus BI. And an example of this is, I guess the challenge over the last 5-10 years is, how do we get more people to be data literate? How do we get more people producing insight, self-serving? Well, theoretically, like AI plus LLMs can help solve that, make it easier to access data, create more reports, create more dashboards. But then you're going to end up with this messy data environment. And I'm curious your thoughts, kind of how AI plus BI impacts sprawl, as well as AI and BI. What kind of guardrails would you set for one of your consulting clients of, hey, we're adding additional AI features, people are going to start using it more, there's going to be more dashboards. How do you manage that?
So in my mind, there are just two responses to what you just said. First, regarding sprawl, I think AI is going to add to it initially. I think that we're in sort of a messy middle portion of it. On the positive flip of that, though, is I think that AI might be a better steward of its data that it's creating in the sprawl. Whereas it's always kind of been, at least for a lot of people in practice, and this is just being honest, coming in and tagging things, documentation, things like that, it's always been secondary. It's kind of, unless that's automatically generated, it is an extra part of the job that you may not want to do, you may not have the expertise to do, or the interest. Also, you just might not have the time. Like, you genuinely might not have the time, and that happens. I think AI solves that a lot for people, more than they realize or appreciate right now, and I think that that's going to grow over time, and people are just going to learn to like that more. I think the sweet spot that companies are admittedly missing right now, and this is just because, it's the nature of business, it's where they've made their money traditionally. But while we're in this messy middle, I think that has to do with training. I think for us to see those benefits of AI and BI, and to, alleviate some of those fears and help people see, how it is that they can work more effectively and efficiently with those things, it's there should just be, we will help make you an expert. We will give us about 10 of your power users, we'll bring them up. And some companies are very good about that, but it's not a standard that every company does. There are ones who will nickel and dime you and just say, all right, cool, take our additional training. That'll be anywhere from a few $100 to a few $1,000 a head. We got you, and we'll talk to you for a few hours a week and set up some, a day-long training for hands-on something. I think there's going to need to be a bit more hand-holding. And I say that because, like I mentioned before, where you're switching between tools, product suites, platforms, and ecosystems. Yes, ecosystems are what the industry is shifting toward, but there are a lot of people who are still in product suite phase. There are a lot of people who are just now getting into the platform phase. Part of that is because, again, just that shifting in thinking of not wanting to be too entrenched, but also just monetarily speaking, you have a number of companies that just can't swing the full ecosystem right now. That is an expensive endeavor.
And we see, as well as like the reality of large companies, I guess it varies, of course, and there's examples of kind of every scenario that exists. But just by default, over time, you become multi-ecosystem of having, hey, we're using Microsoft for this area, the marketing team, well, they're in Tableau with Salesforce, and then we have our engineering team that wants to use Metabase, and someone else really liked ThoughtSpot's latest demo with conversation, and now that's available in Tableau, but we have ThoughtSpot plus Tableau. So how do you deal with that?
Well, so the way that I dealt with that in the past, we just put them all head to head. There has to be a discussion, like an honest discussion effort on the part of leadership to come in and actually say, we are going to choose one lane. We want everyone to do this. It helps when it comes to single sources of truth. It helps when it comes to training. It helps when it comes to managing our contracts and things like that. Coming in, you have to gather your requirements. You have to find out what everyone needs. Then you have to go through, do a number of POCs. From there, you want to sit down, actually judge those different systems based on different factors that are important to you. Things like ease of use, things like amount of training required, things like usability and understanding for people, things like just sheer capabilities. What can it do for you currently, but also consider as you grow, what things might you not need at the moment, but you'll grow into those things. A lot of companies have not taken the time to really sit down and vet those tools hands-on. You kind of see their marketing, you may set up a demo, that might be as far as you take it, and then you leave it alone. And once you do that, commit for a few years. Go ahead and make the sacrifice of thinking to yourself, this isn't something that we're just going to do for 1 or 2 years and then switch to the new hotness. No, this is going to be a minimum 5-year commitment. We actually want to grow our skill set. We want to hire for people who are experts in this and see what things can do. And we want to have fun with it. If it's a tool that everybody hates using, it's not something that's gonna revolutionize your industry. I don't care how great the technology is behind it. If people aren't into it or if they aren't excited about it, that's just going to start you from a really bad place and probably slow down a lot of your efforts.
Yeah, very interesting. And I feel like the migration to get over to one tool as well, like the amount of time, money, resources to get on a centralized platform, like it can't be a short-term investment if you're going to spend 2 years migrating and then switch to the next one in 12 months.
Yep, I agree.
And it's funny, on kind of this multi-tool topic, and you mentioned MicroStrategy early, I think very early in your career or at some point.
Yeah.
So I read a blog post and then coincidentally had another conversation a few days ago about MicroStrategy really making a comeback with their HyperCards feature that's complementing other BI tools, but seems to be a pretty cool use case of kind of integrating it into emails, Slack, Teams with this HyperCard feature. But yeah, I guess just tidbit there on MicroStrategy.
Yeah, and I mean, so one thing that's super interesting to me is that across the BI space, I felt like there were always points of differentiation between a lot of the different vendors. Now, like I said earlier, I feel like everyone's kind of regressing to the mean a bit. They're all kind of headed to the same place, and it's interesting seeing them get there. I've used, just to name a few, PowerBI, Domo, Tableau, ThoughtSpot, Looker. Back when it was Periscope Data, I think now it might be like Sisense Cloud or something like that, because I know they were purchased by Sisense. But just looking across like all of those different users that touch those vendors, you are either looking for, I want a strong control of single source of truth and widgets that I can move around. Okay, cool. Looker. I want, something where we can add onto it over time. It looks great and we can move things around and handle all of our data management there. Cool. Add Domo. It's just everyone's kind of shifting into that same space. Like literally, if you go and you look at what all of these companies are offering right now, the ones who have been in a game for a while, they all kind of start to look really alike right now.
So what's your prediction then, if everyone's kind of becoming very uniform, very similar, in 10 years from now, what do you think the BI space is going to look like?
I think that there's going to be less players. And I say that because I think that the larger ones are going to take on some of the smaller ones just so that they can go ahead and absorb wherever it is that they specialize. And you kind of saw a race to this a few years ago when Salesforce snatched up Tableau, Google snatched up Looker. I honest to goodness thought that Amazon was going to come in and swoop Domo. I was wrong on that, but I honestly thought that was going to happen.
Hey, it could still happen.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It's possible. But now I really do think it's just going to be a matter of either through like partnerships, mergers, or just sheer acquisitions. Like that's what's going to happen. And you have a lot of players in the space who do really great things, but they just can't compete dollars wise with how these other companies are managing resources right now. And when you look at what capabilities they need to keep up with how AI is going to advance, when you look at how quickly they need to produce those things, I mean, Tableau, yesterday they said they've released 140 plus new data, AI, and analytic features in the last 12 months. That is a lot. And there aren't a lot of players who can do that. I hear everyone talking about Hex right now. I hope that Hex grows and everything. But to me, in my mind right now, Hex is a tool at best that will probably be acquired by someone else because it does certain things well. and they might not be a name that you hear about in the next few years.
Right, right. Yeah, and I feel like there's only so many use cases, or like those independent niche ones that you can really
Uh-huh.
cover, and eventually it does. And like, I guess that's what Microsoft's strategy has been this whole time, is that like going back to Word, PowerPoint, Excel is bundling it with Office 365. You can't compete on price. Now with Power BI, and you're not paying at a per user if you're on premium capacities, and that's bundled with overall Fabric. Well, why would I spend extra on a separate BI platform, a governance tool, a monitoring tool, a data catalog, ETL tool? And each of these software companies is charging you $1 million each, versus, hey, or we can use this one player and try to do it all. But yeah, it's I'm very excited for kind of what's going to happen over the next few years. But I do think the niche use cases will never go away.
Hopefully.
Hey, yeah. But I'm wondering if it's... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, it's interesting to me. I would say when all the AI craze started with everything in BI, I definitely was on the fence of, I was worried about it. I was antagonistic at worst, worried at best. Now I'm not like an evangelist or anything, but I am seeing the potential there and everything. I think for those who are listening, who are in the space, the thing to keep in mind is that every company is not going to be able to do ecosystems and switch to these large tools and have these huge commitments just right off the bat. It's cost prohibitive for a lot of companies. So if there's any concern for people of, oh, AI is about to take my job and all these other things, I would honestly just think to yourself a little bit about how many companies there are when you really think about it. How many will not be making those shifts very, very soon? There will be need for your skill sets and things like that going forward into the future. But I do encourage people, take the time to try to keep up. It's gonna happen so fast that pretty much no one's gonna be able to keep up like that. So just accept that it's gonna move at an exponential rate, but I just don't think anyone's gonna master right off the bat. Maybe a select few, but for the most part, it's just something that you wanna work your way through, try new things, and I think that people will be fine in that environment.
Right, right. Yeah, and I guess like beyond just BI, I think any field right now is in like this rapid innovation cycle driven by AI, and it's going to be impossible to see every single thing, but you can see a lot. And switching gears, my last question for you is, would you be able to talk a little bit more about what a Tableau admin does at an organization?
Definitely.
What does that role look like? And what are the most important pieces of that job?
All right, so as a Tableau admin, you're responsible for that entire environment. You're making sure that the data sources are updating frequently and that people can trust those data sources. You're putting out tags, you're building out different projects folders. Importantly, depending on where you work, permissions. There are certain things that you don't want people at various levels to have access to. You're making sure that you're managing your PII, you're managing your security, you're handling any integrations that come through, any new features that are going to get tried out. This isn't necessarily something that I think is solely on an admin, but I would encourage admins, know who your power users are for when you want to test new features. That way you can get those things out and have them manage that. If you're doing things in server, this can be you going through and managing updates. If you are someone that works out in cloud and you aren't managing that, but the company's managing it for you, it's on you to communicate with your company when those downtimes are going to happen because they're managing the updates. So you do a lot of those different things. Manage relationships, making sure that your licenses, if it's a seat-based tool that you're using, making sure that you're keeping up with the needs of your organization, and also something else that you might want to take on, training. It's one of those things where honestly, as more people at the organization get to know those tools and they're comfortable with them, the organization is going to benefit. It benefits everyone. Everyone pretty much only uses data up to their, level of understanding and comfort. And the more people that you can bring along for the ride, the more bang for your buck you're going to get.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for walking through that. And what do you think the biggest challenges admin faces today are?
I think the biggest challenge that an admin faces today, honestly, if there are any limits on your system, the tech can be combative for you a little bit. I've worked with clients where they have great, knowledgeable admins that are doing things. I'm helping them, talking with them about things, but it's literally just a matter of resources. They have thousands of reports, hundreds or thousands of users, all going through this tiny little, environment that's set up. So that can be a challenge. And also, just when it comes to if you're always maintaining those things and spending your time and all of that, if whatever it is that you're using suddenly has this huge revolution, this completely new release comes out, you're the admin, you're the expert. Keeping up with that can be a little bit troublesome for some people. So that's something that you just kind of want to stay on top of in little pieces. Don't try to drink everything from the hose at once, but if you can have like a little glass of water a day, that might be good for you, so yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that's I guess exactly why we're building data logs is that admin role I think is often forgotten, but at every single organization, someone has to be an admin for these systems survive, and there's so many different problems and styles of being reactive of, hey, we start solving problems once they get reported, or how do we flip that to a proactive basis, or managing licenses and something spikes on refresh time. How do you deal with the 1,000 different scenarios that an admin has to face on a daily basis? And I feel like at times it's like a slow drip of problems, and it's just like a waterfall fire hose of issues, and it's this endless kind of challenge.
Yeah, and I mean, like one big thing that every admin has the control to do that a lot of them just don't take the time to do every now and then. Go through, find those reports that people aren't using, find those data sources that are just sitting there taking up space, being stagnant, run them through the powers that be, talk to your end users, delete them. It will help your system run more efficiently. You will be happier in the end, and everyone else will like not having to look through everything that's out there. Data logs, I imagine, can help with things like that for people. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you'd be shocked. Our average client at 60% of reports, dashboards, data sets haven't been touched in 6 months.
That's not shocking to me at all. Like just as an admin, that is not shocking. That actually is pretty par for the course.
And with the AI plus BI, I wonder if that's going to get to 70, 80, 90 if you're not using the chat style features, you're generating reports.
Yeah, I feel like it would definitely depend on how the system is caching that content and how many users you're exposing to that. If you suddenly have everyone in your environment just going through and doing the equivalent of a Google search on your reporting, and if it catches on and they like it, that can get pretty hectic pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Awesome. Yeah. Well, I think that's about all the time we have, John. Thank you for being willing to hop on, dive into Tableau, and talk through everything.
Sweet. Thanks, Logan. It was good to be here, and best of luck to you all. And hey, I appreciate everything you're doing. So keep it going.